Honey, what are you doing? Several years had passed since I married my husband. Our daughter was born and is now 5 years old, attending kindergarten. My husband, who is serious, meticulous, and responsible, actively helps with housework and childcare. He's a wonderful husband. He's particularly passionate about education and sends our daughter to cram school for elementary school entrance exams. Today, as usual, when my husband took a bath with our daughter, an hour had passed before I knew it. They seem to review cram school lessons diligently every day, and I'm impressed by their efforts. However, today it was unusually long, so I called out to the bathroom, "Aren't you coming out yet?" But there was no response. Maybe they were too engrossed to hear me. Even after calling out, "Honey, Amelia," several times, there was no sign of them coming out of the bath. Feeling something was off, I went to the bathroom and heard sounds as if they were both in the bathtub. Thinking they might be playing, I peeked inside quietly and witnessed a shocking scene. I quickly called 911. My name is Amanda, I'm 33 years old, a full-time housewife with a 5-year-old daughter named Amelia. My husband John is 35, 2 years older than me. He works in sales for a major electronics company, which is where we met. At the time, I was working in an office support role for the sales team, so I had frequent interactions with John, who was in the same department. My job was to check his work, but John always submitted flawless paperwork without missing deadlines. Once, he even quietly pointed out a small mistake I had made, showing his kind side. Overall, John was known for his meticulous work ethic, trusted by those around him, and seen as a responsible person. However, our relationship, which had been purely professional, suddenly grew closer at a workplace party where we happened to be seated next to each other. "I'm always indebted to you for your help," John said, bowing slightly with a nervous demeanor. He didn't seem very comfortable around women. I felt a sense of harmlessness and security around him, knowing he wouldn't cause any trouble. As we drank, I got to see a more relaxed side of John. "You're like a busy little squirrel. You must have been in some kind of sports club, right?" John's face was slightly flushed, perhaps from drinking too much. It was refreshing to talk about something other than work, which was all we had discussed.
Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious.
Before. I was in the basketball club during my school days. It was the highlight of my youth. I became more talkative as the alcohol took effect. That sounds nice, youth. I was just a bookworm in school, so I don't have anything like that. I actually wanted to join the track and field club though. John's expression clouded over for a moment as he gazed into the distance. "Ah, but I'm having fun today," John said, swaying slightly as he spoke. It was a smile I had never seen during work hours. We continued chatting, engrossed in conversation. John mostly played the role of listener, nodding along, which felt comfortable and changed my impression of him. After that, we started having casual conversations whenever we met at work, and gradually began having meals together outside of work as well. While he wasn't particularly cheerful, I found his calm demeanor suited me, and we were able to get along well. During one date, when I directly asked John, "Are we dating?" he answered nervously, "Yes, of course. We're dating." This put an end to our ambiguous relationship. When we went out to eat, he was the type to say, "I'm fine with anything, order whatever you like," without asserting his own preferences. Sometimes I would get annoyed and say, "Express your own opinion once in a while," to which he would hurriedly apologize, sorry. While he was generally a pacifist, when drinking, he would often express his academic inferiority complex, saying things like, "My colleague Christopher apparently graduated from a famous university, and people from national universities really are different. He's truly excellent. Compared to him, I." Each time, I would tell him that he was plenty accomplished, but John would angrily respond, "You don't understand at all." I was surprised by this unexpected side of my husband as I tried to calm him down when he was in a bad mood from drinking. Our relationship progressed smoothly, without any major arguments. There wasn't anything particularly romantic about it, but I thought it would be nice if this peaceful feeling continued. After 3 years of dating, we both started to think about marriage. We were planning to visit John's parents' house to formally announce our engagement, but John seemed reluctant to introduce me, apparently not being very fond of his parents. Both of John's parents were civil servants. John has an older brother who works as a researcher at a university. I thought John's seriousness must come from being raised by such upright parents, but there seemed to be some conflict with his parents that I didn't understand. On the other hand, my parents run a restaurant together and never nagged me about studying when I was young. I'm grateful that they raised me freely under my father's belief that being healthy is the most important thing. They allowed me to decide my own path freely, and since I didn't have anything particular I wanted to do, I graduated from a 2-year college. Despite our different family backgrounds, we got married smoothly without any opposition from either of our parents. For a while after marriage, we both worked, and my husband helped with housework. I mainly did the cooking and laundry, but my husband took the initiative in sorting garbage, which was a big help. People around me say I have a rough personality and I'm not good at detailed, meticulous work. You could say I'm easygoing. On the other hand, my husband is quite meticulous, so he cares about whether the garbage is properly sorted. I thought we were a good couple, complementing each other's shortcomings. Soon after, we had a child. My husband was overjoyed, placing his hand on my belly and saying exaggeratedly, "Let's raise this child carefully and send them to Harvard. Maybe they'll become a doctor or a minister in the future." I laughed and said, "That's right. I'm sure they'll be smart like you." During my pregnancy, my husband bought classical music CDs saying it was good for prenatal education, read picture books to the baby in my belly, and I was impressed by his attentive actions. Moreover, he would say, "Stress is not good for the baby," and proactively do various things to the point of being overprotective, which made me a bit worried that he might be trying to take on everything by himself. After giving birth, my husband opposed me continuing to work, saying, "Think of the child first." I also had a strong desire to be with our child, so after discussing it with my husband, I decided to quit my job after giving birth and focus on raising our child and housework. My husband, who used to say he was fine with anything, became passionate about our child's education, and I was surprised by this sudden change. He said, "The beginning is crucial, so I want to give our child the best education possible," and started researching various things on his own. He bought mountains of toys said to be good for cognitive development and played with our child, to the point of exasperating me. We started attending a eurythmics class for infants, which is an educational method that nurtures children's sensibility and expressiveness through music. Parallel to this, we also attended baby swimming classes. Since these activities required parental accompaniment, I spent busy days. My husband continued to help with housework and took good care of our daughter, Amelia. Amelia started walking and talking early, and we both smiled with joy at her healthy growth. When Amelia turned 2, she also started attending French and piano classes. Amelia continued her lessons without complaining, but sometimes when we went to the park, she would throw tantrums wanting to play there longer. I thought she was still young and at an age where she wanted to play a lot, so at times like that, I would let her skip class and play to her heart's content. Contrary to my feelings, my husband seemed to be thinking about the next goal for Amelia. When Amelia turned 5, my husband brought home many elementary school brochures, saying, "The initial start is crucial." I hadn't given any thought to entrance exams. How a child grows in the future depends partly on their own efforts, but the environment they're placed in is a big factor. Isn't it a parent's job to provide the best environment? My husband passionately explained how important elementary school entrance exams were. As a result, we decided to do what we could as parents for Amelia's elementary school entrance exam. My husband said, "Even parents' behavior is related to children's elementary school entrance exams, so let's be careful about our words and actions from today." It was clear that my husband was eager and had high expectations for Amelia. One day, my parents came to visit to see Amelia. As soon as they put down the fruits they had brought, they exclaimed, "Wow! What's all this?" They seemed surprised by the exam preparation banners hanging on the walls. "Isn't Amelia only 5 years old? What's this 10 commandments for exams?" my father asked with a puzzled look. "Eat breakfast together. Do at least one household chore. Exercise moderately." My mother read out the 10 commandments, looking exasperated. "There's a book here called Interview Manual for School Admissions," my mother said, pointing to a pile of books on the living room table. "And this one is Crafts for Exam Success. Can't you just let her do arts and crafts as she likes?" My father sighed with a gesture of resignation. They each seemed to have their own image of elementary school entrance exams, but in any case, my parents thought it was too early for their granddaughter to be taking exams. Times have changed, and it's better for children to get used to exams early on. "Amelia isn't doing this unwillingly," I explained. "Is that so?" "So that's how times are now," my father said, his eyes looking distant. When I told my parents about our approach to education, they didn't seem very convinced but left saying, "Just take it easy, okay?" Busy days continued after that, and although I sometimes thought we might be overdoing it, my husband would always say, "Parents need to be firm," whenever I had doubts. I decided to persevere, thinking it was for Amelia's sake. Amelia attends a private kindergarten from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays. She always goes to school full of energy, saying she enjoys playing outside with her friends. The kindergarten also has an academic curriculum, including reading and writing lessons and French classes, and many children like Amelia are preparing for elementary school entrance exams. After kindergarten, she attends cram school on some days. I, who used to be a paper driver, started driving to take Amelia to and from her lessons. Amelia eats a snack in the car before cram school starts. When I casually asked, "Isn't cram school tough?" Amelia replied with a carefree smile, "It's okay. I'll do my best for Papa and Mama." Although she probably wanted to play with her friends all the time, she didn't complain. "Thank you. Let's do our best together," I said, hugging her body. I thought it would just be until the elementary school entrance exam was over. After that, I planned to let Amelia relax a bit. My husband tried to leave work on time as much as possible, so when I returned home with our daughter from her lessons, I would make dinner while my husband and daughter took a bath together, which had become our routine. In the bath, every time Amelia learned something new, my husband would clap his hands and say, "Good job. Good job. Amelia, you're a genius." Their laughter was so heartwarming that I would pause while making dinner. Amelia would come out of the bath saying, "Papa praised me," looking very pleased. However, my husband was transferred to a different department, and the days he came home late increased. His face seemed to have a gloomy expression, as if he was brooding over something. Moreover, after our daughter's exam was decided, my husband, who appeared serious and sincere on the outside, actually had a cruel and terrifying side. Gradually, glimpses of this began to show. As his stress built up, he became aggressive towards me, and this was also directed at our daughter. When I tried to start a conversation by saying, "Hey, you know what Amelia did today?" my husband was distracted. "What? Is this something that can't wait?" he answered gruffly. He seemed more irritable than usual that day. "Oh, right. The separation of burnable and non-burnable garbage, learn it already, will you?" my husband suddenly said in a low voice. "Sorry, did I make a mistake again?" I hurriedly turned to face him, and he muttered, "Is your head full of garbage too?" without making eye contact. Thinking I might have misheard, I tried to change the subject and showed him the drawing paper in Amelia's hand. Amelia had a proud look on her face. "Amelia drew this picture at kindergarten today. Isn't it well done?" Then my husband crumpled the picture and said, "Don't create more trash." I felt a chill run down my spine, as if there was a personality in my husband that I had never seen before. Meanwhile, Amelia looked puzzled. My husband often came home in a bad mood, and his already limited conversation became even more sparse. He still occasionally took baths with our daughter, but the bath time had become longer than before, sometimes lasting about an hour. When I asked my husband what they were doing, he said they were reviewing cram school lessons together, and I was impressed that they were working so hard. Amelia had always said she would do her best for us, so when I encouraged her saying, "Keep up the good work," she replied, "Papa is a bit scary." "I don't want to take a bath with Papa," Amelia said, hanging her head dejectedly. Since both my husband and I believed in scolding when necessary, I thought she might have been scolded a bit about cram school. I later regretted making such an easy assumption. One day, as usual, the two of them were in the bath, but even after an hour, they hadn't come out. "Aren't you coming out yet?" I called out to the bathroom, but there was no response. Maybe they were too engrossed in playing to hear me. Even after calling out, "Honey, Amelia," several times, there was no sign of them coming out of the bath. Feeling something was off, I went to the bathroom and heard sounds as if they were both in the bathtub. When I peeked inside quietly, I witnessed a shocking scene. My husband was grabbing our daughter's head and pushing it into the bathtub. "You're so incompetent. How many times do I have to tell you? Do you need to learn the hard way?" My husband was glaring at our daughter with a frightening face. I froze at the sight of my husband, which I had never seen before. "Papa, I'm sorry. It's my fault, please forgive me." I could see Amelia's small body trembling. "Children like you need to be punished," my husband scolded fiercely. He seemed unaware of his surroundings. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me," Amelia cried, standing stock-still in the bathtub. "It would have been better if you were never born," my husband said, shaking Amelia's head around. "Bad child." My husband was spanking Amelia's bottom with his other hand. I was too terrified by the atrocity to speak, but thinking my daughter was in danger, I screamed, "Honey, what are you doing?" Surprised by my voice, my husband released his hand from Amelia's head. Amelia was coughing, seemingly having swallowed water. Then, Amelia's crying echoed. My husband seemed to have come to his senses and was dumbfounded by what he had done. The next moment, Amelia retaliated by kicking my husband hard in the groin. My husband writhed in pain, clutching his groin. I was stunned for a moment, but my daughter's brave actions steeled my resolve. I quickly dressed Amelia and took her outside. At the same time, I called 911. Please come quickly. My husband was abusing our daughter. My hand trembled with anger and fear as I held the phone. A few minutes later, when the police arrived and entered the house, they found my husband bleeding. He had cut himself with a kitchen knife. Amelia, don't look. I covered Amelia's eyes. Soon after, my bloodied husband was taken away in an ambulance. I was confused about what had happened, but for now, I decided to call my parents and ask them to take care of my daughter. My parents were shocked to hear about the incident and rushed over immediately. In the end, it seems my husband felt guilty about what he had done to our daughter and harmed himself. If we had discovered this a little later, something even worse might have happened to Amelia. I wondered when this had started to come off track. The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. After some time, I visited my husband's company to organize his belongings and complete various procedures. Since I had also worked at the same company before, I had the chance to talk with a familiar supervisor. He told me, "Your husband had been acting strange since he changed departments." I was concerned and asked his colleagues about it. Apparently, my husband didn't get along with his new supervisor, who constantly berated him and pushed unreasonable demands on him. Once, he was harshly scolded in a voice that echoed down the hallway, "You graduated from a third-rate university, how dare you point out my work? You insolent brat." People around had to intervene. My serious husband was feeling stressed and seemed to be mentally exhausted. As a company, we don't think we're completely unrelated to what happened. We should have taken action earlier. I'm truly sorry. The supervisor's behavior was going to be raised as a power harassment issue within the company. Due to the harsh scolding from this supervisor, coupled with his already strong academic inferiority complex, my husband had been brooding over thoughts like, if only I had graduated from a better university. As a result, his strong desire to not let our daughter experience similar feelings had backfired badly. When I reported this incident to my in-laws, they revealed that my husband had always had such tendencies and would occasionally lose his temper. He's a pathetic man. A disgrace to our family, they said coldly. That child was always troublesome, my mother-in-law added. See, this is why uneducated people are no good, my father-in-law sighed deeply. We were always worried. He wasn't particularly good at studying either, they took turns speaking ill of their son. Accomplished parents and a talented older brother. My husband had always been compared to others. Perhaps even his parents' words had hurt him at times. Apparently, when my husband got bad test scores, he would be hit on the head or deprived of meals. He wasn't allowed to join clubs he wanted because they would interfere with his studies, leading to a student life focused solely on studying. I felt I understood why my husband was so fixated on academic credentials. Perhaps what he wanted most was love from his parents. Thinking about this made my heart ache. However, I couldn't sympathize with him for turning his stress, even temporarily, towards our daughter. My husband was placed under police protection and admitted to a psychiatric hospital. For a while, he was mentally unstable, sometimes suddenly becoming violent or withdrawn. After consulting with my in-laws, I decided to divorce for the sake of our daughter. While my strongest feeling was that I couldn't forgive my husband for his terrible treatment of Amelia, I also wanted to distance myself from my in-laws. I felt I couldn't go along with their mistaken belief in academic supremacy and the idea that low academic credentials mean poor quality. My parents also supported my decision. John was too serious. That's what worried me, my mother said. We need to stop this negative cycle. Children are fine as long as they're healthy and living happily, my father said, patting my shoulder lightly. The world is vast, my father murmured, gazing at a book on the bookshelf. I visited my husband once for divorce procedures. I'm truly sorry. I don't know what to say to Amelia. I've done something unforgivable. My husband, whom I hadn't seen in a while, looked haggard and had tears in his eyes. I should be the one apologizing for not noticing you were suffering. But I can't forgive what you did to Amelia. My husband nodded weakly. It's better if we don't meet again. Please take care of Amelia. A few months have passed, and my husband seems to have calmed down, but we probably won't meet again. After being discharged, he's apparently working and living in a motel in a distant area. I wonder if someday the wounds in his own heart will heal. Since then, Amelia has never asked, "How is Papa doing?" Perhaps she understands something despite her young age. Amelia used to suddenly start crying at night as if remembering something, but now she has settled down. She's bright and energetic as if nothing had happened. She started learning Taekwondo on her own initiative, wanting to practice martial arts. Even today, Amelia's spirited voice echoes in the garden. She looks proud of her nimble roundhouse kicks. My father, watching over her, cheers, "Don't lose in spirit. Rouse yourself. I need to do my best too. My daughter's strength gives me courage." We've decided to stop her exam preparation and are thinking of spending time leisurely at my parents' house.